everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Before we get started, I just want to say that today's video has again kindly been sponsored by Surfshark VPN. Someone asked in my last video what exactly a VPN is. So, a VPN is essentially a service you use that gives you a different IP address on your computer. And this prevents any tracking or hackers from knowing exactly where you are or having the exact IP address of your computer, because the VPN service gives you a different IP address. And aside from extra security, where it actually prevents you from being tracked on the internet, it also gives additional benefits of a lot of websites thinking you're in a different country than you are. So you have a whole list of countries that you can choose from. And that way you can access streaming libraries from other countries. And in a lot of cases, especially now around Christmas, you also get preferential pricing depending on where you are. So if you want to buy something from the US, for example, sometimes they will actually give better pricing if you're there than if you're located abroad. And if you use a VPN, it'll think you're in the US and give you better pricing. So there's a lot of great benefits to a VPN. And Surfshark offer a really good deal now, actually until the end of the year. If you use my discount code or promo code ASMR Zelda, which I have linked in the description box below, you get 84% off their service, and you also get 4 months free. So make sure to check out the description box below if you're interested, and thank you Surfshark for sponsoring this video. So let's get into today's video. I have decided, I'm just going to grab my notes. So I have decided to skip episode 4 of the second volume of Unsolved Mysteries because I don't really have an opinion on it. So in volume 1, there was an episode about alien abductions, which I very firmly do not believe in. Like, I believe in alien life, but I don't necessarily believe in the alien abductions that was discussed there. However, episode 4 of volume 2, if you haven't watched it, was about ghost sightings after a tsunami hit Japan. And not just ghost sightings, but like people being possessed by a ghost to relay a message to their loved ones. And I don't really have an awful lot of opinion on that, because I do believe in ghosts, but I don't know to what extent. Like, do I believe that people can get possessed by them? Not necessarily, but I also don't necessarily rule it out. And I felt like this episode was a lot of separate stories about ghost experiences that I don't really, really all I'd be doing is just telling you what they said, because I don't have too much of an opinion on it. So I'm just gonna skip that. I don't want to make it all about true crime, because the original Unsolved Mysteries were not. And the new ones, out of the 12 episodes, 10 are true crime. But yeah, I just don't have a lot of opinion on that one, so I'm just going to skip that one. So today we're going to be talking about episode 5 of volume 2, called Lady in the Lake. And it is about a woman named JoAnn Romain who went missing on January 12, 2010 from Grosse Pointe Farms in Michigan. She was 55 years old, and she had 3 children, all in their 20s. She was divorced and apparently did not have a very good relationship with her ex-husband. On that night, JoAnn attended a church service around 7 p.m. At 20 past 9 in the evening, so 9:20 p.m., a police officer showed up at her house and asked her daughter if she had heard from her mother because they found her car abandoned in the church parking lot. She didn't know that her mother was missing. I mean, she just thought she went to church. None of her friends had heard from her. None of her family had heard from her. However, a few witnesses did see her leave the church around 7:15 p.m. and then another witness said that they saw or heard her car alarm go off at 7:20 p.m., so just 5 minutes later. Then another witness said that when they left at 7:35 p.m., the parking lot was completely empty and her car was actually found by police in a different spot than where she had parked it when she arrived at the church. The car was locked, but there was no key to be found. Her cell phone was missing. Her purse was found on the front passenger seat, and there were no signs of a struggle in or outside the car. So, if her car was found in a different location, first of all, it means that someone moved it. But the fact that her purse was found inside the car and she did have it with her when she went to church means that at some point she was in the car, whether she drove it herself and moved it or whether someone forced her into the car and drove it for her. Like, she, or at least her purse, found their way back to the car at some point. So, the church was right next to a lake. Now, Michigan in January would have been extremely cold temperatures. I think they said it was 12 degrees Fahrenheit, which I do not exactly know how much it is in Celsius. Let me quickly look that up because I was going to look it up and then I just forgot. I have a little unit converter on my phone that I use all the time when I talk to coworkers. Oh, the app is crashing. Okay. Let me look it up online. Fahrenheit to Celsius. 12. It's minus 11 Celsius, which is like super cold. I mean, I've experienced it once or twice, but it's rare that it gets that cold. So, when police went looking for her, they found footprints in the snow along the embankment leading into the water. And according to some police officers, they also believed what they found were butt marks, like where someone sat down and just slid across the way on their butt. Police think that she walked into the nearby lake to commit suicide, but her family does not believe that one bit. They didn't really think she had a reason to. She lived at home with her 3 kids. She was known to be a very happy woman, someone who really just had a spirit for life. Didn't really seem like depressed, even though I know you can't always tell, but it's just no one believed that she would commit suicide. 70 days after her disappearance, JoAnn's body was found by 2 fishermen in Ontario, Canada. If she had gone into the water at the church, she would have drifted along for 30 to 35 miles before she was found. But because her body was in such a bad state of decomposition, her cause of death was undetermined. So you think she was in the water for the full 70 days. Michelle, her daughter, gave the police 3 suspects. One of them was her uncle, John Matuk. He wasn't necessarily a suspect to her who would have killed her mother, but he had a bit of a shady past where he made some really bad business decisions and owed a lot of people a lot of money, and she thought that maybe they were trying to get to him by killing JoAnn. Then she also mentioned her father and her mother's cousin, a man named Jim Matuk, who was also a police officer. She didn't mention too much about her father. She did say that they had a very bad relationship, like her mom and her dad. And the fact that she wouldn't put it past him to kill her mother does make me think that he was either a violent man or she at least was a little bit afraid of him, because, like, my parents are really happily married, but if they were to ever get divorced, I would never suspect my dad of being able to hurt my mom. Like, that would never enter my mind. And it entered hers because she told police that her father could be a suspect. So I do wonder if, like, she was a little bit afraid of him. I don't know. But Tim, did I say Jim or Tim? It was Tim. Tim Matuk, the mother's first cousin, was, according to her, the main suspect. Apparently, there was a family dispute going on, and JoAnn and Tim had been estranged from each other. In the weeks leading up to JoAnn's disappearance, Michelle overheard an argument between JoAnn and Tim on the phone, where she heard her mother say, "How did you get my number? And never call me again." And after she hung up the phone, she turned to Michelle and said, "If anything happens to me, look to Tim." Now, that's really the gist of the case. There's a couple of strange things. So, one, police never fingerprinted her purse, which I don't understand. Like, if she had it with her in the church and then it was found back in the car, it's not unreasonable to assume that someone else put it there and that you might be able to get some fingerprints off it. If it was Tim, and I'm not going that way yet, but if it was Tim and he's a police officer, he, would have used gloves, but it's still kind of something that you would think police would look into. 2, JoAnn filled her car with gas less than an hour before going to church, which does not indicate someone who wants to commit suicide. You wouldn't go through the trouble of filling up your car with gas if you're then going to kill yourself. And it was an important detail in some of the articles that I read afterwards about this, so I don't think that she needed to get to the church. I think she didn't live that far away from it. I think she purposely did it just to have a full tank of gas. 3, a week before her disappearance, she left a voicemail with a security company saying that she believed she was being followed. 4, her family said that she was acting more nervous and more cautious in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. A co-worker said that she was receiving a lot more calls than usual, and that JoAnn believed that her phone was being tapped. And then 6, her purse was actually ripped on one side. Now her daughter, or I think all her kids, are pretty adamant that that was not there before she went to church. Like, they had not seen the purse being ripped. It was a designer purse. Apparently it was pretty expensive, and JoAnn was very proud of it, and she wouldn't just carry it around with a big rip in it. Also, she always carried her purse over her left shoulder, and when her body was found, there were 2 bruises found on her left arm, which which could indicate that someone grabbed her purse, ripped it in the process, and bruised her arm with it. So that is kind of what there is in the case. I took notes on this case like 2 weeks ago. I just haven't gotten around to recording it yet, but I did a little bit of Googling yesterday just to make sure that there were no updates, and there actually was. Tim Matuk actually gave an interview just a couple of days ago where he talked about the episode. He said, first of all, he told them what the phone call was about. He said that they were not estranged. They had been having a normal relationship up until that point, but he heard from one of their cousins that she had been bad-mouthing him to the family, and so he called her to talk about that. And yes, it got a little heated. She yelled at him and hung up. He said, but that was the first argument they had because up until then, he thought they had a normal relationship. He said that he thought it was really interesting that the family just kind of ganged up on him and publicly accused him when there was no basis for it, and that nobody bothered to talk to him about it first. I don't really know. I mean, both her children and John Matuk, who I believe was JoAnn's brother, all said that there was a family dispute and that her and Tim were estranged. So I'd be more inclined to believe the multiple family members over the one suspect. And he is a police officer. I mean, the family, like her children, actually filed a lawsuit against police for covering up the murder, but they lost that. So, but I think they do firmly believe that since Tim was a police officer, the police force helped to cover this up. There was an investigation done about going down the embankment when it was full of snow because JoAnn was wearing heels. And it was said, and they showed a woman doing it in heels, and it is extremely, extremely treacherous. And I don't think there's any way she could have done it without falling. Now, if she was planning to commit suicide, I don't think she would have cared about that because she was going into the water anyway. But if the prints that were found were indeed butt prints, then she could have just slid across the snow. But I don't know for what purpose. I do find it hard to believe that she committed suicide, but again, with these Netflix episodes, I feel like there's a lot of information that they never talk about. Like, her family describes her as being really happy and having a great home life, but we don't really know what her mental state was. I do find it a very strange way to commit suicide, to do it in freezing cold water. Like, that's not a quote-unquote pleasant way to do it, you know? Also, the fact that she gassed up her car before she went, I find a little bit strange. I don't think it's out of the ordinary that she did it after a church service. But her car was moved not very far. Like, it was literally moved, I believe, from the parking lot to the side of the road. Like, you know, same vicinity, with her purse still inside. I don't really know why she would have gotten in her car to go home and then decided, oh, you know what, I'm going to go into the water and just turn back. I don't find that very plausible. But I feel like we have very little to go on. So she said, allegedly, if something happens to me, look to Tim. But that could have been a very heat of the moment thing to say if he just got off an argument on the phone with someone and he's a police officer, that you may say something like that. But apparently she was very, she did think someone was following her and she thought her phone was being tapped. So she obviously was very worried about someone. And appears to have been Tim. I just don't think that we know enough about this because I didn't rewatch the episode since I took notes on it, and I did not take notes on this, so correct me if they did mention it. I don't think they mentioned it. But when I was Googling it yesterday, I actually Googled what the family dispute was about, and I couldn't find it anywhere, so I don't know if they mentioned it in the episode or not. But I couldn't tell what the family dispute was about. My guess is it's about money. That's what it's always about. But I don't really know enough about it to think that that's a motive for murder. I do think that the ripped purse and the bruises on her arm are like a weird thing. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know. I don't think she committed suicide, but I also don't know enough about it, to be honest, to blame it on Tim or say that I have any idea why he did it. He didn't cooperate with the episode, but he did give an interview a few days ago to give his side of the story. Now, again, of course, it doesn't coincide with the rest of the families, and I am inclined to believe the multiple people over the one. But I don't know. I feel like her ex-husband wasn't really mentioned enough in this episode, and I'm also still not ruling out that it was someone from John's past. He was very close to her, but I don't know what good it would have done to kill her to get to him. I don't know if that would have done any good. So I'm kind of stumped on this one, to be honest. I found it a very interesting case. When I first watched it, I think about halfway through the episode, I still thought to myself, to be honest, I think she committed suicide. But the more they went into it, and there were like these unsolved things of her filling up the car and the bruises on her arm and ripped purse and stuff, I thought, well, maybe not. But I'm still not ruling it out. I'm not ruling out anything because you never know what mental state a person is in, and I do want to make that very clear. And I mentioned this, I think, in the second